Yes. How's everybody doing? Good. That was very underwhelming. We all feeling a little subdued today? Do we have a long day? Yeah, long day. All right. That's cool. It's cool. I'll bring the mood down. No, I won't. It's about as low as we go. So it's fine. Well, my name is Ashley. For those of you who don't know, I think you all do by now. And I am so ridiculously happy that you are here, legitimately. So tonight we are doing the first Let's Get Real LGR talk of the semester. So these are talks specifically geared toward high school and college-aged students, or just individuals in general. You don't have to be a student to come to these talks. And this last year, we began the Wesley Foundation at MSU here in Mankato. And so what that is simply a campus ministry intended to be like a Wesleyan presence on MSU's campus. And I am the planter of that campus ministry, so I serve as the pastor of that, but I also am over the youth program here at Hilltop, so grades 6 through 12. And what we discovered last semester in particular, and over the summer, is that our high school students really resonate a lot more deeply with what we have going on Sunday nights rather than Wednesday night. So I want you to know that if you have people you are connected with in high school ages who would like to be a part of these conversations or other Sunday nights, we have class meeting, which for those of our Wesley Foundation people who've been coming for a while know what that is ad nauseum, because I've told them over and over and over again. If they can articulate it is another question. But what it is just a small group experience where we get together and we are actually honest about how we are doing. Right? So like on a Sunday morning, I show up here and I have about 35 different people who ask me, how are you? And 32 of them, I say, I'm fine, how are you? Right? Which is probably what most of you say to somebody on a Sunday morning. I'm fine, how are you? Good, great. The other 3 of the 35, I'm able to say, I'm really struggling with this. Could you please pray for me? And that's what we do here on Sunday nights, is we come together and we talk about the good things and we talk about the hard things, and we are just as honest as we can be with ourselves and with each other, and we trust that whatever is said here is sacred, whatever is said here is confidential, and whatever is said here is in an effort to grow as a Christian, to grow as a human being, to grow as somebody who longs to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And so all of us who are part of the Wesley Foundation, we have committed to intentionally seeking a relationship with each other and with God in whatever way that takes form. And so we have decided to covenant together that Sunday nights we get together and we have dinner, we hang out, and we talk about ridiculous things, and then we get real with each other and talk about our souls and how are we actually, do we ever even experience God? And if not, that's okay, but what goodness can we identify in our lives, right? And maybe that might be God. So tonight we're coming together to have a real conversation. This won't just be me talking at you the whole time, although it might feel like it at times. But I hope that at any point in time, if you have a question, if you have a story that something touches as I talk and you want to share, I want this to be a two-way discussion. I don't want it to just be me talking your head off all night. But before we get started, I want to do 2 things. First and foremost, if you are a leader with the Wesley Foundation, I would like to ask you to stand. So if you are an appointed leader at the Wesley Foundation, please stand. So Bree, please stand. Sarah, please stand. Alyssa, please stand. I shouldn't have to say your names, but I am right now. So Phil serves as kind of like our catch-all guy. Anything you need that you can't get from one of these other 3 ladies, or Peter, who is Alyssa's husband, then you come to him and say, hey, I have a question. Can you help me with this? And he might have the answer. He might not, but he'll come to one of us and find out for you. Yeah, 90% of the time. He knows a lot, and he will tell you all about it, and he licks rocks. Bree, wave your hand, Bree. Hey! Bree is serving as our president this year of the Wesley Foundation. Yes, I know. We're so excited. This was just decided this last week. She accepted the position. So I'm super, super, super thrilled. And what that means is simply that she is always going to be present at whatever Wesley Foundation events that we have within reason. She can't be there. It's all good. But her intention is to be there, to be a welcoming presence, and to get to know you, and to get you connected to our community. She in particular is in charge of our Grow group, our Grow team. So that has to do with what we do here on Sunday nights and then how we connect with each other and with God throughout the week. Phil, Bree, you can sit. Alyssa, will you turn so that people can see you? This is Alyssa Thormanson. She is the coordinator of our Wesley House. So over at 222 Dillon Avenue, we have the Wesley House. That is where we gather for conversation, for coffee, for hangouts in between classes. But she and her husband, Peter, live there. They maintain the property for us. And they schedule hospitality hours so that from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., anybody who is connected to the Wesley in any way, shape, or form can come and hang out and get free coffee and snacks and whatever. There's Wi-Fi. So just saying, if you need a place. So there it is. Alyssa, thank you. And then Sarah. Okay, is it Hagar? Oh, Hagar, every time. Hagar. So Sarah serves as coordinator of our Reach team. Eleanor, you also need to stand. Sarah serves as the coordinator of our Reach team. So that is anything that we do for the sake of the community around us, just for the sake of showing love, Jesus' love to the world. So we hosted a few events this last week. We welcomed students with walking tacos on campus and did tie-dye shirts, and we had volleyball games and all this stuff. So that was a part of her team's doing. And then later on this semester, we're going to be co-sponsoring a homecoming event with MSU, and they'll be teaming up to do that. And so, Sarah, thank you. Yeah, girl. So any fun events that you might think of, you're like, hey, we should do this as a community. Go talk to Sarah and see like if we already have that on the calendar or if it's something that you two could partner up about to say, hey, we want to have this camping trip or we want to do this whatever. Like, have you ever heard of a reverse confessional? Anybody? Oh, a reverse confessional is, so you know what confession is, right? Confessionals in the Catholic Church. I was raised Catholic. So you go to the confessional and you sit down and there's like a screen here dividing you and the priest, or there might be a wall in front of you and the priest on the other side. And say, Father, forgive me for I've sinned. It has been so many days, weeks, months, years since my last confession. And then you list the things that you feel like are grieving your heart, the things that you feel like you would consider sins. And then the priest gives you some penance, right? Something to do in order to feel like your soul is in a right place. And then you go. So a reverse confessional is when the church goes to the people and sets up some sort of structure, and people come in, and we as the church confess our sins against the world. Deep, right? So that would be a really cool event to do, like a reverse confessional, or like if we wanted to be a part of something. Anywho, doesn't matter. Carry on. So Eleanor, if you would just raise your little hand right there. Hey, girl. So Eleanor, just this last week, said yes to serving as the coordinator of our HEAL team. So I am super excited. So the HEAL team has to do with mission, social justice, and service. So anything having to do with us being the hands and feet of Jesus in the world, right? Actually living our faith. So these other things like are for the sake of ourselves, maybe a little bit, feel good. This is for the sake of making other people feel good because of Jesus, right? Unabashedly because of our faith. So if you would like to be a part of any of these teams, now you know who the leaders are. Bree for Grow, Sarah for Reach, and Eleanor for Heal. You are welcome. Yes, so the worship team is something that you will also get introduced to this Thursday night. We have worship second Thursday. The second Thursday of every month, we will have worship on MSU campus at 6:45. And Peter Thormanson, Alyssa's husband, coordinates that. So if you're musical and you would like to serve on the worship team, I know Phil, Whitney, maybe some others in this room are also going to be serving on that team. No, you? No, I don't know. Anywho, go talk to them. It's fine. All right, and now we're going to pray, and then we'll get started. Will you pray with me? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I am just so grateful. I am so grateful for your love that is unconditional. I am so grateful for your presence, which is ever abiding. I am so grateful for this community which you have drawn together for such a night as this. I ask that by the power and presence of your Holy Spirit, this would be a sacred time. This would be an evening of rest and rejuvenation, of learning and healing and growing, and maybe, Lord, of our eyes being opened to something that we've never really intentionally considered before, but that matters to you, how we transition. And so, Lord, we ask in this moment that you would fall afresh on this place, that you would open our eyes to see you, our ears to hear you, and our hearts to know you more truly this day. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so show of hands, how many of you are students? Do I see? Oh, okay. All right, I see some hands back there. All right, very good. So then how many of you are new students in your particular context? So like if you just transitioned into school or you just transitioned into a new school, how many of you are new students? Anybody? Ish, yeah. Okay, so then how many of you moved here from somewhere else? Yeah. How many of you started something new within the last 12 months? Yeah. Everybody's hand should be up in here because every single one of us, no matter how small, has started something new within the last 12 months. And within the last 12 months, if you started something new, that means, congratulations, you are in transition. And the rest of you, new job, new house, new family dynamic, new relationship, all of these things are new, right? Even if you don't think about it, intentionally being brand new for you, if something has changed in your life in the last 12 months, you are in transition. And so this evening, this talk is an intentional conversation looking at the social science behind transition. And it was first given to me by a woman whom I adore, Marilyn Elliott. She served as the vice president at Asbury Theological Seminary, where I went to school, and I'm still going to school from afar. And she gave this talk to a group of seminarians, so those of us who all had moved to this Mayberry of a town called Wilmore, Kentucky. And this talk, these concepts, this idea of transition, well, it became so critically important for me, like shaping everything and every decision that I made going forward. You think that that's an overstatement, but it's not. It's not just important today or tomorrow or this year, and it's not just for those matriculating into college. It's going to apply to our entire lives. That's the truth of it. Transition is something that this culture and our churches don't talk about. Really, most of us don't really think about it too much, even though everyone you meet, including everyone in this room, is in a constant state of what psychologists call semi-permanent transitionality. Can you say that with me? Semi-permanent transitionality. I can't hear you. Semi-permanent transitionality. Thank you. Which, of course, simply means that something is always changing. In every single one of our lives, there's nothing truly that remains stagnant because we are living, breathing humans who change at all times. And so, semi-permanent transitionality means stuff is always changing. Just want you to keep that in the back of your mind. So tonight we're going to start off by acknowledging that reality here and now, that there was a life that you left behind when you transitioned. Okay? I want you to think about this. There was a life that you left behind when you made the transition to college, to high school, to Mankato, to a new job. There was a normal that you left. Okay? Can we all, can you picture in your mind for the transition you're living into? There was a way you lived that now you don't. Okay. So let me describe the life that you left. If you were, at least, in a place where you felt settled, secure, and like you had a sense of belonging there. So when we are in a present-oriented place where we haven't made significant changes for quite a while, usually at least 12 months, we live as the owner of our life. And not just the owner of our life, but the owner of all of life. And all the life of those around us. And our commitment is to be present-oriented. So you are not living in a present-oriented state. You are not living in the past. You are not living in the future. You are fully present to your life as it is right now. You're not wishing for something different. You're not longing. You are fully present. That is a present-oriented life. And in that present-oriented life where you felt settled, secure, and a sense of belonging, you were responsible. And not only were you responsible for something, but you were responsive as well. You both knew what the culture around you needed, but you knew as well how to receive from it. So you could give to your context, and you could also get from your context. You were also a part of some sort of group, which you might have underestimated at the time, but this is critically important. It is not necessarily a spiritual small group like what we maybe are doing here, but instead it's a group where vital information is shared. It is a group where you feel known and information is exchanged, information that we all take for granted. We take all of these things for granted, not realizing how much they support our life in every way, shape, and form. So when I was moving into seminary, I came from a town called Tallahassee, Florida. Go Noles, yeah, not the Gators. We don't like the Gators here. So that place, I had lived for... Whitney, so sorry. I had lived there for 4 years in Tallahassee, Florida. Now, that is enough time that over the course of my stay there, I knew where I got my hair cut. I knew where my favorite donut shop was. I knew what Mr. Robato's was, and it was delicious. And I knew how to get all the good tickets to the football games. I knew where the good tailgating was and where the awful, you're going to get arrested tailgating was, right? So in that world, not only did I know what my social sphere was, where I could go to contribute, but I also knew how to get my needs met, right? So when I moved from there to Wilmore, Kentucky, this beautiful, picturesque Mayberry of a town, I was super excited in theory to go there. But when I arrived, I remember pulling in. I was driving this little Honda Element, following the Penske truck in front of me. And when we pulled into the parking lot and I was able to walk up and see my house, I just started to cry. And it wasn't happy tears. I was really devastated because all of a sudden I realized that I knew nothing about this place. I knew about it in theory, but I didn't know at all how to get my needs met anymore. I didn't know where the gas station was, but I heard that it was called Cluckers. What? And I didn't know where I could go to get a massage, which sounds really frivolous, and it is, but it is my happy place, where I could get a pedicure. These little things that we totally take for granted in our previous life that make us feel safe and secure. And not only that, but nobody in that place knew my name. Nobody. And that was a really lonely place to be. Now, when you live somewhere for a while, you know how to get your needs met. You know how to get your hair cut. You know where to get the donuts. You know how to solve your problems quickly. And it's because you're a part of some group, some community, right? Where you feel a sense of belonging and you know how to get and give information. Where you feel confirmed for who you are. Not for what you can give, but for who you are. In my previous context, I was a part of the Wesley Foundation at Florida State University. This was the first time ever that I was a part of a small community of Christians who didn't just do church on Sunday and then go do whatever they wanted throughout the week, right? And that's not a judgment situation, that's a reality, right? You say that you believe in Jesus, but then you go and you trash talk every person who doesn't look like you throughout the week. You say that you want to love others, but then you speak hate behind people's back. That in and of itself, I'm not talking about even doing things that we might consider sinful. That in and of itself is not indicative of who we are called to be. And that was the life that I was raised in. That was the community, the culture that I was raised in. And so then I go to this Wesley Foundation where people are excited to be at church on Sunday. What? And then that night we get together and we do messy games games and minute to win it games, and we play 9 square. I don't even know if you know what that is here. Okay, fantastic. And and then on Thursday nights, we would do late night worship, and people would come at 9:00, and we would stay until 2:00 in the morning. Like, people wanted to be in community with each other. And then it was gone. All the people who knew me, all the people who loved me, all the people who had encouraged me for 4 years were just gone. And so you have all kinds of places where you were confirmed for who you are. Maybe there was a time like you walked into a room and for the first time realized that you were known there. Not because of anything you had ever done, but just because of who you are. I will never forget the night when Bree she was late and she didn't tell any of us that she was coming. And so or that she wasn't coming. And so a bunch of us texted her all at one time, like, hey, where are you? Are you coming to group tonight? What are you doing? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Are you okay? Because in this community, she has become a bedrock for us. She has become a standing figure here, which is why so many of you, when I said she was president, said, it's about time. Because we love her, not because she's done anything, right? But just because of who she is. Okay, and what she can, anywho, I'm going to move on before you get any more red. I see your sweet little face. So, when you are in a present-oriented context and embedded in the fabric of a community, you have a largely automatic way of getting your needs met. You don't have to think about it. And you get what you need out of the environment, including contributing. So for those of you who are brand new to Mankato, to college, to middle or high school, brand new in any capacity, there's almost nothing you're contributing when you first enter, right? When you first enter into a new place, you don't know who to be or what to do. You need somebody to tell you what the needs are and how you can maybe contribute to them. Everything is actually being given to you. You're very rarely giving anything. And whether you know it or not, you are created to give, not just receive. You have this innate desire within you as given by God for you to contribute to this world, to leave a mark on this world, to love and be loved in this world. And so, because you don't know what you can contribute yet, you feel lost. You feel insecure. You feel awkward. And you might wonder some questions about maybe whether or not you made the right choice. And we'll talk more about that later. What we forget is that all of this way of being is being connected to people and resources and contributing. It all undergirds and supports our sense of being. Because whether we know this or not, we are who we are in a given circumstance. A lot of us like to think that we are who we are independent of any circumstance. Like, I would make this decision no matter what, whether my context was exactly the same, whether I had this job or not, I would, of course, make this decision. No, you wouldn't. You don't know that for sure because you are who you are in a given circumstance. And you can't help it. That's how we were created. And that's not the end of the story either. But there are 2 reasons why people decide to change, okay? Why they have enough impetus to change. Because there are only 2. I don't know if you realize this. We resist change at all costs. At all costs. We do not like change. You might think you like change. You don't. You like change that you choose to change, right? Word, that is right. We don't actually like change. We resist it at every cost, which is why when I had all of you sit at tables in there, and then I said, I would like for you to move to a different table, like none of you did. Am I right? Because I asked you to change your position. You were like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't know who those people are. Like, what if they're weird? What if they're like awkward like me? What will we talk about? Suck it up, buttercup. It's transition, okay? The reality is that there are 2 reasons why we finally decide to change. And does anybody know what they might be? Why on earth do we ever decide to actually make a change in life? Good. There's a simpler word for it. To grow. Anybody know? That's close. I would call it vision. So there's a compelling vision. For you, the vision might be to grow. For somebody else, it might be something else, right? So vision is one. Does anybody know what the other one is? Ooh, midlife crisis. What would you boil that down to? One word. Pain. Right? Pain and vision. And most often, it's actually a combination of the two. So the only time we ever change is if the pain of a situation gets bad enough, if it becomes so unbearable that we can no longer stand it, then we walk away. The pain of the situation becomes so unbearable, we choose to walk away. Second, if we can see a future that is bigger and better than what we already have, if we can envision something which gives us hope, then we will take a step toward that future. And like I said, most often, I'm sure if you think about the major changes in your lives, it's probably a combination of both. It's probably a dissatisfaction coupled with a longing for more, right? Okay, I see most of you nodding your heads yes, so at least you all know you're in the same boat. You are not unique. You are. You are a snowflake, and I love you so much. For some reason, each and every person in this room has made the decision at this point in life that we can let go and we can move on and make a change from that life that we had before. We have decided we are going to take a step toward a new future and leave the pain of that previous situation behind, right? Whatever it is, we are taking that step to make a change. Every single person in this room has done that within the last 12 months. And so I want to give you credit right now. You are all, first of all, higher functioning humans than most of society. Most people don't change intentionally. Most people don't make the choice to change. Change just happens to them, right? Because they resist it at all costs. So you are making the intentional decision, and I want to be I just want to be real clear here that is huge. That is huge for you to make the choice to do something that you believe is a compelling decision. A choice that is stepping in the right direction for who you long to be and the life you long to live. That is a good thing. Now, in just a couple of words, I want you to think for a second. When you think about the endings that you have made, if you think about this most recent decision to make a change, I want you to think about that ending, and I want you to think about the beginning. There's probably for many of us a day when everything changed, right? A day when we made a decision and everything changed, right? Okay, so we can do this well and healthy, and we can do it poorly and unhealthy, right? There are ramifications for both, consequences, positive or negative for both. And so I want to talk about how we do it well and how we navigate this change, this transition with grace. So every change begins with that beginning. And what you didn't realize at the time was that your ending actually impacts your beginning. How you end totally has an influence on how you begin. And so I want you to think about, for a second, how many of you are acutely aware in this moment because of this conversation of the ending you made? How many of you can feel it? I just made this ending. Okay, so I want you to take a moment, and to those around you, if you feel brave, I'd like you to share in just a couple of words. What's the most poignant thing about that ending for you? When you think about that ending, what is the word or the words that come to mind? Feel free to turn to the people that you know for this point in time. But go ahead and talk for just a minute. Okay, so I'm curious to know how many of you, by show of hands, feel like maybe you made an unhealthy ending? Yeah, me too, right here. How many of you, by show of hands, think that you made a relatively healthy ending? You feel good about it? Yeah, okay, awesome. So the gift of this is that it doesn't, like, it's okay if we made an unhealthy ending. Like, it doesn't have to define everything going forward, right? And it's okay if it's a good thing if we made a healthy ending, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we will continue the health just out of happenstance. Like, we have to choose that path as well. So some of us, we go through our ending in the unhealthy way. We lie to everyone. And we don't realize that we're lying really, but we are. We're lying to ourselves and we're lying to the people we love around us. We say things like to our best friend, it's not gonna change. Like nothing, I know I'm moving from Florida to Kentucky, but we are still gonna talk every day and we're still gonna be best friends and it's gonna be fine and I'll call you every night at 5:00. No, that did not happen, right? Like those things don't actually, I lied. Because I was so afraid of the pain that would come within myself, right? Of realizing the grief that is happening, the death of a friendship and a normal that is happening. Because I just wanted to put in a little box and put it on the shelf and we'll deal with that later, right? I just did that a few weeks ago when one of my very best friends, Kylie, moved to Duluth. Like, I'm a crier, and you all know this about me. Like, I cry over everything, and the day that I went over and helped her pack up her car and sent her off, like, I left, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go walk Newt. Like, I didn't even, nothing, because I just couldn't. I just could not handle another emotional thing in my life, and I was choosing to compartmentalize it because I just didn't want to deal. But then like 3 weeks later, I burst into tears on a Friday night when I had nobody to hang out with. And she was up in Duluth. And I'm like, why is this my life? And I hate everything, right? Like, because I didn't end well. Because I couldn't just face it in the moment that like life is going to suck for a little while when the person who I did everything with just left for a good reason, right? And I'm happy for her, but that doesn't mean that it's not painful for me. And so in the same way, many of us didn't say goodbye. We were busying ourselves and lying to ourselves by saying this isn't a death. Maybe we avoided finishing off problems. Maybe we were so ready to leave, so ready to be done with that previous life that we just said, oh, that's somebody else's problem. Don't have to deal with that anymore. And really what we did was kind of create a mess for ourselves. Maybe? Nah. You'll deal with that burning bridge later. You left and you were glad to leave, Phil. You couldn't wait to escape the problems you were dealing with. And so you didn't do the necessary work, like me, to at least face the problems, right? We didn't have to fix them, just acknowledge the truth of what they are so they don't feel like this burning house hanging over our heads. That would be really painful, I know. Carrie Underwood, no? Okay, I move on. Some of us don't know how to say goodbye also. That's the reality. Some of us truly, also Minnesota goodbye, like you never say goodbye. You just keep talking until somebody gets in their car, right? Like it just doesn't actually end the conversation. So many of us have literally no idea how to say goodbye well, how to say goodbye in a way that is meaningful and that gives us closure. And so, one of the things that I learned from this talk that was so pivotal to me, sounds really lame, maybe it is, but it works, is you have to ask yourself when it is time to say goodbye to a place or to a group of people, where are the places that I am going to miss so much? Where are the places that I am going to miss? And who are the people that I can't imagine doing life without? And once you're able to answer those questions, then you can go to those places and you can go to those people and you can be honest with yourself and you can be honest with them and you can cry about it or cuss about it or whatever you got to do, go to therapy together. I don't know. But like, I remember one of the things for me was there was this place over on the edge of campus at Asbury before I moved here. That is called Solomon's Porch. And it's a Christian coffee shop. Do you know what that is, Eleanor? Did you? Yeah. So we went to this little coffee shop called Solomon's Porch, and I was there like literally every day. I knew Aaron and Tim Gibson. They are the owners who took it over, and I would go hang out at their farm, Shalom Hills, and we would pick blackberries. It was like literally I was living in Mayberry. Like, I'm not even joking you. And I would go to that little coffee shop every day in between classes, or in between, like if I had a 15-minute break at work, or I just needed to get away from my boss. Like, I would travel across campus this same little path every day, and I would go get my either pumpkin pie latte, because pumpkin spice is where it's at, and or I'd get my honeybee latte. I might get a little scone. I don't know how I'm feeling. And that was one of the places that I had to say goodbye to, and I cried so much, and I still, like, when I think about it, like, I miss it, and it doesn't mean that I'm not fully present to this place. It just means that I felt so home there. It's my little corner where I could go and do my homework, or I could go and talk to people, and I could, it's like the Hag for many of us here will become, right? Like, becomes a family there. So, ending well. Many of us don't do it. Many of us don't say goodbye. Many of us lie. Many of us just ignore our problems. And what it ends up doing is causing some chaos for us. A good ending, a healthy ending, is honest. It acknowledges the loss and the changes that are going to come. It says that this is a problem, and I'm going to face it, and I might not fix it, but I'm not going to leave rubble behind me. Because otherwise, if I do that, then I can't go back to that place because I started a house fire there, and I can't go back to that place because I killed their child, and I can't go back. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's pretty dramatic, but it's true. That's kind of what it feels like. You literally can't go back there because it causes too much anxiety in you. Even the simplest of unfinished endings can cause panic attacks when we think about going back, because we didn't leave well. We left something unfinished. And a good ending also asks, what matters to you? What matters to me? And if you're in a relationship, if you have children, then this is a really important question pairing to ask them too. Who are the people and where are the places that matter to you? Because it might surprise you. Like, it might totally and completely surprise you, the places and the people that matter to the people you love in your life. And so don't just assume that what's important to you is important to them. It might be something completely different. Also, don't minimize it or shame it, right? Like, you wouldn't want them to do that to you, so let them have their thing. So the outward work of ending is packing, right, and the farewells, but the inner work is a process of accepting. It's a process of surrender to the reality that lies ahead of us, that life will never be the same. And we will have to change our patterns of life, and we're going to have to release some things. And this is very much like the death and grieving process. It is totally a death in your life, and you will have to grieve it, whether you like it or not. Otherwise, it'll just come out 3 weeks later, or 3 months later, or 3 years later, right? Like, that's the truth. You'll cry when you break your nail or stub your toe. Phil? You don't have toes, I know. Os Guinness, I don't know how many of you know who he is, but he's an author. Pretty sure he's dead. I don't know for sure, but I think. So he authored the book, The Call, and in that he says this: negotiating the changes feels longer and worse than the change itself. Negotiating the changes feels longer and worse than the change itself because transition threatens our sense of personal meaning. It threatens everything we believe is true and everything we hold dear, and that is where you are right now, whether you realize it or not. You are in a time of transition, and when you leave, you have high expectations, you have bright hopes. It's like lifting a burden. Like, there's this whole new life that I'm going to go into, and it's going to be fine, and rainbows, and everything's going to be fantastic as soon as I make the change. But that's not true. You let go of that present orientation of being fully available to the life that is in front of you, and then all of a sudden you become future-oriented. And I don't know if you know this, but when you become future-oriented or when you become past-oriented, you're actually in a temporary state of insanity. Did you know that? You are. You are, because you're not fully alive to the life that is before you. You are dwelling in the past, or you are fixated on the future, and you can't enjoy the life that is in front of you. Kind of insane. And you act a little insane, Phil. It's true. So I need some volunteers. I need 4 volunteers, and it would be fantastic if at least one of them was a male. I would also say if you are somebody who feels as though you are athletic in any way, shape, or form, that you might be in shape. You might be somebody who has good balance. You might be somebody who would say, I will try anything once. Then I think you should just raise your little hand or come up here with me. I need 4 volunteers. Get up here. Yes. Allie and Kaylee and Phil and, yes, Danielle, let's get up here. All right. Okay, all right. So let's just introduce ourselves right quick. Name?
Kaylee. Allison.
Danielle.
Phil.
Fantastic. Well, hey, friends, you are all in transition. And I want you to think about transition not as one step, right? But it is a journey. It is as if you are like crossing a street. It takes multiple steps. And in fact, there might be obstacles in the way as you transition across a street. There might be a car. There might be a frog. There might be roadkill. Right? I know, I went there. I'm so sorry. It's just what happened in my brain. So there you go. And what I need you to do is, Phil, I would like for you to be over here. Right here. This is Phil. Phil represents your old life, right? Phil is everything you knew and loved and held dear, your sense of belonging. And Danielle, I would like for you to be our new life. She's fun and funky. She seems like she has lots of interesting things with her tattoos and everything. She has something new to offer, right? Okay, so ladies, if you will follow me to start your journey of transition in your old life. So you have decided to make a change, ladies. You have decided to make the intentional journey of transition. You are ending well and saying goodbye and facing your problems, and you are going on to your new life. But oh, wait. Oh, no. There is a transition that lies ahead of you. How will you get from your old life to your new life when the floor is lava? Don't touch the floor. So you have to step on up here, and I would like you to decide how you're going to make your way across it. Oh, wait, hold on. How are you feeling?
Scared.
Feeling a little scared. All right, carry on. All right, oh, yep. All right, okay. Oh, deep. Wait, how are you feeling right now?
Very, very scared.
Okay, all right. Ooh! Woo! Yes! Kaylee?
I feel accomplished.
You feel accomplished, yes! And here's your new life. Go on into your new life. And let's give her a round of applause. That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, Allie. Okay. How do you feel?
Scared.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to come up with a synonym for scared.
I don't want to say accomplished.
Accomplished. Can we give them a round of applause, please? All right. Okay, first of all, I want to call out a few things that happened here. I can't help but notice that these 2 sweet girls decided to go the journey alone. Okay? So each of them decided, this is my journey to take, right? They could have said, okay, we're going to do this together. But they didn't. They did it on their own. And they each made it, right? I know that you each said you felt scared, but really legitimately, how did you feel when you got to these 3 right here?
Unbalanced.
Unbalanced. How did you feel?
I felt embarrassed.
Yeah. Because everybody was watching you? Yeah. Everybody knew you were in transition, and you didn't know how you were going to get across. And what if you fell? Everybody's eyes are on you. Okay, very good. Well, can we give everybody a round of applause, please? You're all done. You can take a seat. So I've seen this done many different ways, and I've seen this happen many times. Lydia and I tried to do it before you all came in here. And the chairs were further apart, I will tell you that. And when we did it, we both got to this point and we were like, oh, what? Like, this is not going to happen. And we tried, I think we each tried once to get across and we both fell, which is why I decided to move the chairs just a little bit closer together and also pick people who are more athletic than we are and see if maybe they could navigate the change a little bit better. But the reality is that this is totally indicative of what a life in transition looks like. You say you are ready to make a change. You say, yes, I am going to quit my job. I just talked to him and I told him what's up. And I'm moving on, people. I'm going to start looking for jobs. It's going to be great. Can't afford my apartment. It's fine. We're going to figure that out. It's good. It's great. Yeah, everything's fine. It's fine. It's going to work itself out. It's cool. Nope, just got rejected from that job. That interview did not go well. It's fine. Everything's good. Gonna just apply for a few more jobs. Oh, I was late on my rent 3 times, which means I'm getting evicted. So now what am I going to do? Either I'm going to fall and die, or I'm going to adjust in some way, shape, or form to make it across this chasm. Because for many people, even in just that simplest of decisions, right? As a young adult, when you decide that you are going to make a change in your job, there are very few options ahead of you. You can either, with all eyes on you, because the reality is that all of us as young adults have a sphere of influence, people who care deeply about us, and every time we come to them, they say, how is school going? Oh, well, what are you going to do with that major? Oh, yeah, that's really sweet. Do you have a backup plan? Okay, well, if you need anything, just let me know, right? Like, that is so legitimately major, real life, what happens to so many of us is that we actually are pursuing our dreams, and then somebody says to us, well, that's not realistic. And then when things begin to fall apart, you fall apart because maybe they were all right. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this is going to break me. And in that example, if it came down to the point where truly you were getting evicted, your options are to either become a couch hopper, become homeless, or move in with your parents. And which is worse? Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd move all the way back down to Texas. It's fine. They're up here now? Oh, well, there you go. Phil, you're an anomaly. It's fine. So the rest of us, it sounds like a friggin' nightmare. Like, I am not, especially if it were me, I would have to figure out a way to get all the way from Minnesota down to Florida on, no money, right? Like, what is that about? So reality is that when you move somewhere new, you think you've arrived, but you haven't arrived. And there is this whole thing that has to happen once you make the decision to make the change, right? There's this whole chasm in front of you. You think you move from your old life and your new life by magic, but really it's just like crossing over these 4, 5 obstacles. You actually have to get from your old life to your new life, and it can feel treacherous. And the mistake we make is thinking that this transition is the change, and we hate it. We think that this transition is our new life, and we have made a mistake. There is no way that this is the life that I wanted for myself. And so, if we can say to ourselves, no, this isn't my new life, this is transition, and I hate this transition, then it's a journey. It's not the end, right? It's temporary. It's a season. So I'm going to talk to you about these 4 chairs. The first chair, you are present-oriented. You are stable. You are feeling good about life. And you're not even thinking about how to get your needs met. It just happens. But then you decide you're making a change, and things get wobbly. You enter transition. You make a change and get to that new place. And for the first time in so long, things don't come easily to you. You have to actually think about it. You have to put yourself out there. Do I belong here? Does anyone even like me? Where is Weggy's on campus, and why is it actually not on campus? Can we talk about that? Okay, so then we get to the middle part, the point when so many of us feels like it's too much. And this is when, if we don't have the right support system in place, we can actually fall off the edge. we can completely fall apart and start saying things like, I hate this place, and I hate these people, and this isn't working for me, and I made a mistake, and I want to go home. But the truth is, it's not true. You don't actually hate this place. You didn't make a mistake. It's just the stupid ball in the middle, right? Like it's screwing everything up right now, right? And once you realize that, you can call it for what it is. You hate the ball, not this life, right? And then the rest of the way kind of feels like smooth sailing, doesn't it? Didn't it? Felt like smooth sailing. You're like, oh my gosh, I got past that. I can get past anything. Like, it's fine. Yeah, you're like, and then you just see, that's right, then you see Danielle and everything's good. Like, we're in our new life and it's fantastic. And so once you're finally fully invested and enveloped in that new life, once you find your sense of belonging, that feeling of being seen and known and valued, which you actually missed from your old life, you'll find that you can't imagine life any other way. You can't imagine life without this new place you call home and this people you call family. So in that first chair, you're a tourist. I don't know if you know this about yourself. You think everything is cute. You might call it the honeymoon phase. If you would, take some of these and pass them around for me. So in the honeymoon phase, you are actually a tourist. Everything is exciting and wonderful, and you are really happy. You've made the change, and this adventure is fantastic, and everything's going to be great, and rainbows and poop unicorns, and it's fantastic, right? Like, it's good. And then all of a sudden, something happens. Many of us have this illusion. How many of you have ever been on a mission trip? Yeah, okay. How many of you have been on multiple mission trips? Okay, so some of us might, if we've been on multiple mission trips, say something along the lines of, I'm a world traveler. I know so much about these different cultures because I was on a mission trip for 1 week there and 3 weeks there, and I even was 6 weeks there. And so I know what life is like for them. No, you don't. You're a tourist. You have no idea what life is like for them there. You have lived in 3 different countries and experienced life for a minimal amount of time. You don't know what it's like to actually be those people. You don't actually know what it's like to get your needs met and to contribute to society there. In fact, you were in a little microcosm, and you were being told what to do. And that was fantastic and great and gave you a sense of purpose, but you don't actually belong there. And in fact, if you stayed longer without the support system you came in with, it probably would suck because you'd be in transition. What? Okay. But we'll talk more about that later. So that's the first chair, tourist, honeymoon, everything's fantastic. I'm a world traveler. Second chair is unsteady because you begin to sense that you are no longer in that flow of information. You no longer contribute. You no longer receive. You are out of the flow. You do not know how to get your needs met, and even worse, you don't know who to trust. You don't. I want you to think about it. Your compass is broken. Your little barometer, it's off. You can't figure life out. You might become friends with someone on the first day who turns out to be a total ass 3 weeks later and hurt you, right? You might meet somebody who's actually really extraordinarily nice, but you don't trust them because who's actually that nice? Let's be real. So in that season, in that second chair of like you've made the change and life is actually happening around you and it's so new still, but you're like trying to figure life out, there's this huge amount of distrust that wells up inside of all of us, and it actually alienates us. It causes us to feel even more alone. And we start to get anxiety and maybe even a little angry. And we might be depressed. All of these things might happen because all of our needs are all of a sudden up in the air. And in this time, we might start to judge people really harshly. That's actually what happens with most of us when we are in this second chair. We're going across campus, and we're trying to make friends, and we wave at somebody and be really kind, and they don't wave back, and we're like, well, that guy's an whatever. He's a jerk. Or we bump into somebody on accident at Caribou, like literally your shoulders smack and they don't turn around and say sorry. And you're like, well, thanks, buddy. I'm just picturing all these people as Phil. So that's why they're all men. Hey. You're the token male here, so it's good. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. So gotta put you in your place. But the reality is that person who can't wave at you, the person who accidentally bumped into you, might be so deep in transition themselves that they could barely get themselves out of bed in the morning. And the mere fact that they are walking around is a miracle. And so what if instead of judging each other more harshly and taking everything personally, we gave a little bit of grace? Because that's what we need in that season too. Because all of a sudden we become irritable. All of a sudden we become really cynical and critical and judgy. That's what happens. Because we are in a state of anxiety. It causes us to be temporary insanity. It's great. It's really fantastic. We misjudge each other because of transition. And then we are on the outside looking in. We see all of these people at the coffee shops and at Chipotle, and they're happy, and they're doing their thing, and they have people like they are talking and laughing, and it looks fantastic, and I don't have that. Or there are two people walking across campus together, or sitting at the lunch table together, or there are two people who drove up to practice together and they didn't invite me. Why didn't they invite me? Right? Like, we start to question everything and take everything personally. And so if we can just say, this is transition, and it freaking sucks, but you know what? I don't have to do it alone. Because in each and every one of our lives, no matter what transition we are going through, there is somebody. There is somebody by the grace of God who we can connect with in every single stage of life, in every single circumstance, in every single context. There's somebody who God has uniquely placed in your life to be your support system in a time of transition, who can remind you, no, you didn't make a mistake. You're just on that second chair right now. It's okay. This is temporary. And in fact, these are the reasons that you decided to make the change. And these are the things that are waiting for you on the other side. And in the midst of it, I'm going to go through it with you. This is why I pointed out to you that Kaylee and Allison did this on their own. They chose, which is what most young people do, to make the journey of life alone. We are so afraid of what other people might think of us. We are so afraid that somebody else might reject us. We are so afraid of making a mistake that we often choose to isolate ourselves. We often choose to make the journey harder on ourselves without even realizing it, because we don't realize how much we need each other. And so here's what I want to encourage you to do in any major transition moving forward: end well and end it with somebody who can come with you. Whether it's physically come with you or emotionally come with you on the journey of transition. Because if you try to do it alone, it's a really scary thing. It's a lot less scary when you're with somebody else. Just one other person that you can trust completely. One other person who sees you and knows you and can encourage you and support you in that ball. So, because what'll happen if you decide to make the change, if you decide to do it with somebody else, then you will have the courage to start showing up, being present-oriented in your life. If you have one other person that you can trust and lean on, then you will start showing up to things for the first time, like a Let's Get Real talk on a Sunday night, right? You will show up to something new, an opportunity that is placed before you, as long as you know there is one person there who can love you through it. There's one person there who, even if it sucks, like, you get to go afterward and talk about it, right? Like, at least you didn't do it alone. So, I just want to encourage you that in these seasons of transition, when you feel this like unsteadiness, when you feel that sense of like, I'm not essential to this community, I don't know what importance I bring, everything feels unstable, just remember that it's not you, and it's not that you made a poor choice. It's that you're in transition, and it's temporary. Now, I want you to think, I want you to realize that anxiety, that piece that is on your stages of culture shock, because that's what you're in right now is culture shock. Every transition is a culture shock. Anxiety actually kills your ability to learn. It kills your ability to connect. It thwarts every effort that you could possibly make to be your true self. And so whatever you can do to find a sense of calm, of peace, of ease, usually that will look completely different from person to person from person. But if you can sit and be quiet and think about, okay, when do I feel the most at ease? When do I feel the most myself and the most alive and the most present to my life? That will help you. That will lessen the anxiety and help you to be able to show up fully to your life. Because what will happen eventually is that then you'll begin to feel known. Because what will happen is, like on next Sunday night, you will begin to share your story. And people will begin to know you. And once people know your story and know you, you will feel as if you are a part of the community. You will feel as if you are in the flow of information. You will feel as if you contribute something and you are receiving something, and this is actually maybe okay. Like, oh yeah, these people are beginning to know me, and what they know about me, they still love me, right? No matter how optimistic you felt at the outset of your journey, you will be shook at that exercise ball. No matter what, it will cause you to grieve deeply, and everyone grieves differently. And so be kind to yourself and be kind to others. But be aware that there are lots of ways to grieve in healthy and unhealthy ways. And as this community, we have intentionally decided that these Let's Get Real talks, they're always going to be about things that matter to you, right? And so one of the things that came up last semester that we are actually going to talk about next month, I want to say it's October 7th, is going to be suicide prevention. We talked last semester about living with mental illness as a Christian. So next month we're going to talk about suicide prevention. So those of us who have dealt with suicidal ideation and loved ones who have attempted suicide, those of us who have actually walked our way through that season or that experience, we know how devastating it can be and how overwhelming it can feel. And a lot of the time, what we're discovering is that if we just had a community around us, it would make that experience a lot less lonely and a lot less unbearable and maybe a lot more hopeful. And so next month, Miss Melissa, will you raise your hand? Melissa is going to be speaking to us about that, about what are the statistics, what's the data, and what are the ways that we can recognize warning signs for those who might be suicidal, and what are the ways that we can love and support someone through that experience? What are the ways we as individuals and the ways we as a community can actually come alongside and love somebody who is experiencing suicidal thoughts, who is deep in the pit of depression, recognizing that this is something that they're not alone in, but that it is something we can walk through together, right? So thank you, Melissa. I'm so happy that you're here tonight. So some of us cope in unhealthy ways and some of us cope in healthy ways. Last semester, we also talked about pornography. That would definitely be an unhealthy coping mechanism. Same thing with any sort of, if you are self-medicating, that's what pornography often is self-medication. Drugs, alcohol, you name, there are a million different ways that you can actually really harm yourself when you think that you're making yourself feel better. And so there are those things, but a healthy coping mechanism might be what? Running, especially running with a group. We do that. Hey. It might be art. It might be playing a sport. It might be going on a nature hike. It might be writing or journaling. It might be singing or playing music. There are endless numbers of ways that we can cope healthily. And most often, they are most fulfilling when we are in the context of community. And so, when you reach the tunnel of chaos, your sleeping patterns will probably change. Just letting you know. Your eating habits will probably change. You will probably feel depressed or anxious. And some people, they change actually. It's called ego disillusion. So some people, when they enter into transition, if they are the most extroverted person in the entire world, will enter into transition and become a freaking hermit. That's what I did. Like, I isolate like nobody's business. It's ridiculous. That's what I do when I'm in transition. I don't know how to get my needs met, and so I shut down. And then the most introverted person might totally overcompensate and be like, I need to be super extroverted and like put myself out there so people like me, and then they're super awkward, make everybody uncomfortable. It's great. But recognize that this is just transition happening to you, right? And that this is not your true self. You're putting on an act. And so give each other and give yourself some grace. You might have mood swings. You might have relationship problems. It's all good. You are not broken. You are not irreparable. You are in transition. So if you are struggling, name it. It's not a faith problem. It's not a sin issue. Unless it's a sin issue, then you got to deal with the sin issue. But most often it is actually just transition. So claim it. Be gentle. And just be okay with how you're feeling. Sit in the misery, wallow in it, and find a friend that you can call and be like, I am in the pit of despair. And they're like, okay, great, I'll be right there. Right? Like, don't surround yourself with people who constantly want to fix you. Right? Like, those people are good. But surround yourself with people who are willing to sit with you in that dark place and are willing to walk with you into the light. They don't let you stay there forever. But they love you through it, right? So first and foremost, be gentle. Second, show up. Show up, lean in, and fully invest yourself. Third, live graciously. These things in transition are the pivotal combination. What were they? Do you remember what they were? First and foremost, have grace, people. Have grace. Have grace with yourself. Be gentle. Say it with me. First step, have grace. Okay, fantastic. Second step is to show up. Yeah, it is. Have grace. Yes, I'm so proud of you. And third is to, anybody know? Huh? That was part of show up. That was very close, though. But to live graciously is really what it is. I didn't cover it yet. Look for moments of grace. Recognize that God has not left you. God has not abandoned you. God has not left you to this forsaken place. In fact, he is with you in it, and he is trying so hard to bring joy to your heart in the midst of it. And so look for moments of grace. This is not a time to be disciplined with yourself. This is not a time to be super structured and to try on a million new ways of being the perfect human. This is a time to pour yourself a cup of tea and sit on wherever brings you peace and joy. If you have a porch, if you have a balcony, if you have a little room, a little chair in your room, that just makes you feel loved and happy and safe. Go take your cup of tea and sit there. Maybe a chocolate chip cookie. This is a really good visual for me right now. I'm having a great time. Go there and be gracious with yourself. Don't should all over yourself. Love yourself through this time. Because this is a time, you Minnesotans, when the ice rink is no longer frozen. Oh, I've gotten a lot of your attention right now. I'm so excited. So I like to think about life as being frozen most of the time. Most of the time, if you picture life as an ice rink, all of the furniture of your life is set up in that ice rink, and it is frozen solid. You could break it and move it, but that would be destructive, and you'd probably leave a hole, right? And so you might fall into the hole and die. I'm just creating a visual for you here. It's all good, Phil. You're not from Minnesota. So there are very few times in life when the ice melts. We are coming to the end of summer, and we feel the brevity of summer in this moment, I think all of us in this room. And we are in a melting season right now. All of you have just decided to make a melting season in your life. And that means that all of the furniture of your life is no longer frozen. That means that everything can be rearranged in such a way that brings you life and joy and peace before it freezes again. And it's going to be stuck like that for a little while. And we're going to adjust, just like your little chart says. And then if we live with it long enough, we will accept it and actually be truly happy with the way that it is. Until the pain of the situation becomes so great and the vision becomes so clear that we can't help but want to change it all again. Right? Am I right? Can I get an amen? Transition is impending. Semi-permanent transitionality. It's real life. So, when all of our needs aren't being met, we have the chance to discern more clearly what truly matters. When the ice melts, we can decide, oh my gosh, I hated that chair there. I'm never putting it there again. So I'm going to move it over here. When we are in a season of transition, we can discern more clearly what matters, what our values are. And so because you are in a season of transition right now, I want you to think about it. What matters most truly to you? What are the things that you value most in life? And if you could say to God today, what I really need is, what would it be? What I really need, God, is this. Do any of you have like a word, an image, an answer to that question? Yeah? When life isn't just happening to us automatically, we are able to deepen the meaning of our life. We are able to be intentional when we have to think about the way we get our needs met. We no longer have to go to the hairdresser that our mom always made us go to. In fact, we can go to a different one now. We can choose. We don't have to eat the way that we did in that other place. These are silly examples, but it's true. Like when you are in transition, you choose. And you can either meet your needs more deeply, or you can keep living halfly. That's a word. Like bigly. You have a choice to be intentional, perhaps in a way that is completely brand new to you, and you will have the chance to trust God more deeply for things that you never knew you needed to trust him for. And he will show up and prove himself every time, beyond your wildest dreams. Beyond your wildest dreams. And I just want to speak to you for a moment from my heart about that. Every time that I have ever made an incredibly difficult, heartbreaking decision, I was so afraid that I would disappoint everybody, that I would break everything, that everybody would hate me, and that I would be broken. And what happened every time is that God gave me people who proved to me how wrong I was. God showed up in my life through other people to remind me that I am loved unconditionally, that I am truly unbreakable. Same goes for every single one of you in this room. There's nothing in this life that could ever break you beyond repair. Nothing that God could never redeem. It's just not true. And there is nothing that you could do to be unlovable, ever. Ever. Except that. I ruined it, didn't I? I broke it. I'm so sorry. So, closing up tonight, what I would like for you to do, every single one of you, I've watched the thoughts about transition kind of run across your face. And so, first of all, I want to ask, are there any questions? Are there any things that have been stirred up in you tonight that you feel like, oh my goodness, like if your heart is like pounding really hard right now, that means you probably need to say something. It's usually how God tells me that I need to say something as I have heart palpitations. It's really encouraging. So if you have something that you feel like, I really need to ask this or I really need to share this with the group, like this is the time. So I just want to ask, are there any questions? Is there anything that you feel like, I definitely want to share this real quick? Okay, if not, what I would like to ask is just a couple of questions. And I'm going to ask you what you would like to do with them. We can either talk about them as a group, large group. The questions are, what are the losses you're feeling right now? And which ones are most acute? Cute. And where are you in the transition process? Where are you in the transition process? So I'd like to ask you, would you like to answer these questions as a group, have large group conversation about them, or would you like to break out into small group conversation about them, or would you like to just turn to one person and share? What would you like to do? Show of hands if you would like to do the large group. I know, you and me, girl, right here. It's good, it's good. I always want to know how people are feeling and what they're thinking and like, can I be with you in it? I know. Other people don't like that. It's lame. I love you, though. How many of you would like to break out into small groups? How many of you would like to just turn to the person beside you and talk about it? All right, that got the most votes, fine. So I don't get to hear anything. Okay, but at the end, if you would like to share with the group, I would love to hear it. So we're just gonna take like 7 minutes. I will tell you when it's over. But you can spread out throughout the sanctuary. You can go out into the narthex, whatever you'd like to do. But we're just gonna take 7 minutes and talk about what are the losses you're feeling right now and which ones are most acute. And then where are you in the transition process? Losses, most acute, transition process. Go.